the first time Nia Carter saved Han Joon-seo's life, she did it by throwing a silver pot of oxbone soup across a $12,000 dining table while 14 armed men watched her like she had just signed her own death warrant. The soup hit the marble floor in a pale, steaming wave, scattering sliced scallions, crushed garlic, and a thin ribbon of oil that should not have shimmered blue under the chandelier light. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Not because the room had become dramatic, but because every man in that private dining hall understood the same simple fact. The plus-size black woman in the white chef's jacket had interrupted the first meal their boss had agreed to eat in 2 days, and she had done it without permission, without apology, and without showing a single visible trace of fear. Han Joon-seo sat at the head of the table, with his chopsticks still between his fingers, the untouched spoon less than an inch from his right hand. At 41, he had the kind of stillness that made people lower their voices before they understood why. He was not loud, not theatrical, not interested in proving power to men who already knew he owned it. His black suit was cut with the discipline of soul money. His hair brushed back from a face too composed to be mistaken for calm, and the scar near his left thumb showed when he set the chopsticks down with careful precision. Around him stood the inner men of Baeko, the White Tiger Syndicate, a Korean underworld network built on shipping routes, private security contracts, political favors, and old family debts nobody wrote down. They had seen him order punishments with fewer words than most people used to ask for tea. They had not seen a newly hired chef slap death away from his mouth. "Explain," Joon-seo said, and the word carried no anger yet, which made it more dangerous than anger. Nia looked at the spilled soup, then at the small blue sheen separating from the broth as it spread across the marble. Her heart was beating hard enough to make the collar of her chef's jacket feel too tight, but her hands stayed steady because panic had never paid a hospital bill, never sent rent to her aunt in Atlanta, never kept a younger cousin enrolled in community college, and never once helped a woman over 150 kilograms move safely through rooms designed to make her feel too visible. She had spent 32 years learning how to take up space without asking forgiveness for it. She had a round, expressive face, deep brown skin, thick arms made strong by kitchen labor, and eyes people underestimated because they were warm before they were sharp. Tonight those eyes were fixed on the soup. "That broth was clean when I finished it," she said. "Somebody touched it after it left my kitchen." One of the men near the sideboard shifted his weight. Nia noticed, because kitchens had trained her to notice small betrayals. A cook hiding a burn, a server lying about dropped garnish, a manager pretending not to smell spoiled cream. The man's name, she thought, was Mr. Choi, though nobody had introduced him properly. He had collected the soup tray from the kitchen 11 minutes earlier, wearing black gloves that did not match the pale cotton gloves used by the dining staff. She had noticed them because he had handled the tray like a man carrying evidence, not dinner. Joon-seo's eyes moved from Nia to Choi without hurry. "Did you touch the pot?" Choi bowed so quickly his neck creased above his collar. "Only to carry it, sir." Nia picked up the tasting spoon she had used in the kitchen, still sitting on a folded towel beside the service cart. "Then lick this spoon," she said, holding it out. And several men inhaled at once because nobody in that house spoke across Joon-seo's authority that way. "If the soup was bad when it left my kitchen, this will be bad too. If it wasn't, then the poison got added between the kitchen door and this table." Joon-seo watched her for a long second. He had brought her into the compound through an American domestic staffing firm because his doctor, his sister, and his old housekeeper had all failed to solve the problem of him refusing food during war season. The agency had sent him a file. Nia Carter, African-American, Atlanta-born, trained in New Orleans and Chicago, former private chef for high-security clients in Dubai, fluent enough in kitchen Korean to manage staff, physically strong, discreet, references excellent. The file did not mention that she would look at him as if he were a stubborn patient, instead of the most feared Korean Mafia boss in Hanam-dong. It did not mention that she would throw away his meal before poison touched his tongue. "Give it to him," Joon-seo said. Choi's face changed by less than a blink, but Nia saw it. The spoon went into his hand. He lifted it halfway, and then his wrist trembled. Joon-seo leaned back, not far, just enough for the men nearest Choi to understand that the space around the table had become a trap. Choi dropped the spoon and ran for the service door. He made it 3 steps before 2 guards folded him into the wall with a violence so efficient it barely disturbed the table linen. A phone slid from his pocket and skidded across the marble through the spilled broth. The screen lit when it hit the chair leg. One message glowed in Korean. If he eats, transfer clears. Nobody spoke while Park Dae-min, Joon-seo's chief of security, picked up the phone with a napkin and read the message. Park was 50, square-shouldered, and tired in the way of men who had survived too many rooms by never assuming any room was safe. He looked at Joon-seo, then at Nia, then at the ruined soup. The number is masked. Nia wiped her hands on her apron, even though there was nothing on them. She wanted very badly to step backward, return to the kitchen, and become just an employee again. But the room had already crossed a line and dragged her with it. She could feel Joon-seo studying her, not with gratitude, not yet, but with a colder question. In his world, the person who identified poison could be a savior, a witness, a planted performer, or the last clean object in a dirty chain. She understood enough about power to know those categories were not far apart. Who hired you? He asked. The agency you paid, she said. And before that, desperation. A few men looked at her as if the answer was too blunt. Joon-seo did not. Desperation has many employers. My aunt has kidney failure in Georgia. My mother's house is 2 months behind. And my cousin's tuition doesn't wait for anybody's pride, Nia said, keeping her voice level because shame did not become less shameful when dressed up. Your job paid more than 3 hotel contracts combined. So I flew here, learned your kitchen, and cooked what I was hired to cook. I did not poison your soup. If I wanted you dead, I would not have wasted good stock warning you first. The sentence was too honest to sound rehearsed. Joon-seo's face gave nothing away, but his fingers moved once against the table edge. Park noticed. Nia noticed Park noticing. Somewhere outside the dining room, Seoul was still alive with late traffic, neon, delivery scooters, and the river shining between towers, as if men like Han Joon-seo did not decide who vanished beneath its bridges. Inside, the smell of beef bone, garlic, and chemical bitterness rose from the marble. Joon-seo stood. Every man in the room straightened. Lock the compound, he said. Nobody leaves. Nobody calls out. Search the kitchen, the service hall, the staff quarters, and every delivery record from the last 72 hours. Then he looked at Nia, and for the first time since she had entered his house, his attention landed on her with its full weight. You stay where I can see you. Nia swallowed once. Am I being accused? You are being kept alive until I know which answer is. Park pulled Choi upright, blood running from the corner of the man's mouth, and the phone in Park's hand buzzed again before anyone could move. This time the message was in English, clean and simple, as if written for Nia alone. The chef was delivered exactly as promised. The chef was delivered exactly as promised, and the sentence sat on Park Dae-min's phone with the smug patience of a trap that had already closed halfway. Nia read it once, then again, because her mind refused to accept the insult in only one pass. Delivered. As if she were meat from a supplier invoice. As if her flight from Atlanta, her signed contract, her careful packing of compression socks and chef knives, and her grandmother's worn wooden spoon had all been reduced to logistics in somebody else's war. Joon-seo took the phone from Park, read the message, and did not look at her immediately, which was somehow worse than if he had. Men like him did not need much time to suspect a person. They needed time to decide what suspicion allowed them to do. Park nodded. That detail struck Nia harder than she expected. Not dying. In most stories about men like Joon-seo, people pretended ruthlessness meant stupidity with better clothes. But this man's cruelty, if that was what waited beneath his control, apparently knew how to count. A dead courier could not explain the poison. A living one might name a buyer, a hallway, a hand, or nothing useful at all, but the possibility was worth preserving. Choi was dragged out, leaving a red smear near the service door and a trail through the soup that one of the younger staff members kept staring at, until Nia wanted to cover his eyes like he was a child. Joon-seo turned to her. Kitchen. He did not touch her. He did not need to. Two guards fell in behind them as they moved through the service corridor, past white walls, hidden cameras, and a staff elevator that opened only with thumbprint access. Nia walked in front, aware of her own body in a way she hated. The weight of each step, the warmth beneath her jacket, the way fear made people want to shrink, and the impossibility of shrinking when your life had always been built in a body strangers felt permitted to measure. She refused to apologize with her posture. Her Aunt Renee used to say that some rooms were built narrow because small men feared women who arrived whole. Nia thought of that now as she pushed open the kitchen door. The kitchen was bright, immaculate, and suddenly under occupation. Security men moved through drawers, pantry shelves, spice tins, rice containers, delivery crates, and trash bins with the solemn violence of people who believed contamination could be found by touching everything. Nia felt anger rise before fear could smother it. "Stop opening the saffron with wet gloves," she snapped at one guard. "That costs more than your watch and it absorbs moisture." The guard froze and glanced toward Joon-seo. Joon-seo, to Nia's surprise, said, "Do what she says." That was the first useful inch of trust he gave her, and she spent it immediately. She crossed to the prep station, pulled the tasting log from beneath the scale, and flipped it open to the last page. "I taste and record every dish before it leaves my kitchen. Time, temperature, salt adjustment, allergen risk, staff witness if someone is nearby. I do it because rich people sue creatively, and dangerous people accuse creatively." She set the notebook on the steel counter and pointed to the entry. Seo Leongtang finished at 7:16, tasted clean, pH strip normal. Mr. Choi collected at 7:22. Dining room service started at 7:29. That gives 7 minutes where the pot was out of my sight. Park had returned silently and stood near the door, listening. Joon-seo read the notebook without touching it, then looked at the service camera above the hallway. "Footage? Pulled already," Park said. "The 7-minute window is missing." Camera froze on a still frame. Nia laughed once under her breath, not because anything was funny, but because the shape of the setup had become so rude it almost deserved applause. Then your enemy knew your camera system, your dinner time, your service route, and the name of the new chef your agency sent from America. That is a lot of knowledge for one frightened server. Joon-seo's eyes moved to her. "You think like security. I think like a woman who has worked for billionaires, ministers, drunk sons of oil men, and wives who hid divorce papers inside flour tins," she said. "A kitchen is not a soft place. It is a supply chain with knives." Park's mouth almost moved. Joon-seo's did not, but some calculation in him shifted. He asked for her agency contact, her arrival documents, her delivery records, and every message she had received since accepting the job. She gave them because refusing would make her look guiltier, and because she knew there was no privacy inside a fortress after poison touched the floor. Still, when Park took her phone, something sour went through her chest. The device held photos of her mother in a dialysis chair, pretending to be cheerful, voice notes from her cousin Malik, recipes from her grandmother, recorded in messy fragments, and a life beyond Han Joon-seo's locked gates. Watching it leave her hand felt like surrendering proof that she existed outside the accusation. By midnight, she had been moved to a small sitting room beside the kitchen, with one guard outside and a camera angled above the door. She was not handcuffed. Nobody had called it detention. The words people avoided told her almost as much as the words they used. Through the wall, she could hear men entering and leaving the kitchen. Park's low voice, the faint scrape of crates being moved. She had not eaten since noon, which was ridiculous under the circumstances because she was surrounded by food and too angry to be hungry. At 1:12, Joon-seo entered carrying her phone in one hand and a paper cup of coffee in the other. "I am not drinking anything you bring me," Nia said. His eyebrow moved slightly. "Good." He set the coffee on the side table and sat across from her. Not close, not casual, his presence too controlled to be mistaken for comfort. "The agency record is clean on the surface. Your background checks match. Your references exist. Your debt exists. Your family exists. That must be disappointing for whoever wants me to look imaginary. The problem is not that you are fake," he said. The problem is that someone real was positioned in my house with enough precision to make you useful. Nia stared at him. The coffee smelled burnt and expensive, which offended her professionally. Useful as what? Access, distraction, blame, maybe all three. She folded her hands over her stomach and forced herself not to rub the ache at the base of her thumb, an old kitchen strain that returned when she was tired. Then you should ask who benefits if you stop. Joon-seo stepped closer, and she could feel the heat of him beside her, controlled but present. Park took a photograph of the label. Nia reached for the discarded backing paper in the trash, the sticky liner most people ignored, and held it under the light. A partial fingerprint in broth grease, not clear, but present. Along the edge was a tiny black fiber, caught in the adhesive. Black glove, she said. Park looked at her. Choi wore black gloves. So did the man who packed the crate, Nia said. And if your kitchen staff uses white cotton, then either Choi handled it twice, or someone dressed like security came through before service. Joon-seo's encrypted phone buzzed on the counter. He read the message, and the entire room seemed to narrow around the movement of his eyes. He turned the screen toward Park first, then toward Nia. It was a photograph taken from across the street outside the Atlanta dialysis clinic where her mother received treatment. Beneath it was one line: "Ask the chef how many kidneys her loyalty is worth." Ask the chef how many kidneys her loyalty is worth. And Nia's first reaction was not screaming, not collapsing, not begging Han Joon-seo to fix what his world had dragged toward her family. Her first reaction was to calculate the time difference between Seoul and Atlanta, the clinic's Thursday schedule, the distance from the patient entrance to the parking lot, and whether Aunt Renee would answer if called from an unknown international number at that hour. Fear arrived in the body before it became language. It tightened behind her knees, dried the roof of her mouth, and made the stainless steel prep table look suddenly too bright, too clean, too far away from Georgia, where her mother might be sitting under fluorescent lights with a blanket over her lap, and no idea that a war in Seoul had found her name. Joon-seo watched the calculation move through Nia's face. That was the first moment he stopped thinking of her as a variable, and began thinking of her as a person whose life had been reached by his enemies. "Park," he said, "contact our Atlanta asset. I want physical eyes on the clinic in 10 minutes. Police if needed, but not through official channels until we know who is watching." Nia turned on him. "You have an Atlanta asset? I have assets in ports, airports, legal offices, shipping insurers, and places where money changes hands too quietly," he said. "Right now, that is useful." The answer should have frightened her more than it did. Instead, some practical, exhausted part of her took the help before pride could dress itself up as morality. Park was already moving, phone to his ear, Korean sliding into English as he left the kitchen. Nia kept looking at the photograph. It had been taken through a car window, slightly angled, afternoon light across the clinic sign. Whoever sent it either had someone in Georgia or had purchased the image from someone who did. That meant the threat was not theatrical. It had logistics behind it. "My mother does not know where I really work," she said. "Good. She knows I cook for a private family. Better. She knows I needed the money badly enough to say yes fast." Joon-seo did not answer that, perhaps because there was no answer that did not insult both of them. He took the phone back, forwarded the image to Park, and then did something Nia did not expect. He stepped away from her, giving her room instead of crowding the panic. Powerful men often mistook proximity for control. Joon-seo did not. He stood near the sink, one hand resting on the steel edge, and waited, as if he had all night, although both of them knew the night was already burning down around them. Park returned 11 minutes later. "Your mother is safe," he said to Nia. "Aunt Renee is with her. Our contact is outside the clinic. No visible tail yet. We are moving them through a medical transport excuse to a different facility before morning." Nia nodded once and turned toward the walk-in refrigerator because she needed 5 seconds where nobody saw her face. The cold hit her cheeks. Inside, surrounded by stacked produce, labeled containers, marinating short ribs, and the faint smell of ginger, she pressed both hands against the metal shelf and let the terror pass through without letting it own the room. She had come to Seoul to protect her family with money. Now a man she barely knew was protecting them with shadows. The imbalance of that made her angry. The necessity of it made her more angry. When she came out, Joon-seo was alone. Park had left again. The kitchen clock read 2:03 a.m. "I can send you home," Joon-seo said. "Tonight. New documents, new route. Your family moved before anyone can reach them. And what happens to the person who used me to reach you? I handle him." That is not an answer. That is a door you close so you can do ugly things without witnesses. His jaw tightened. Sometimes witnesses become casualties. Sometimes witnesses notice what armed men miss, she said, walking back to the prep table and picking up the crate label. Somebody wanted me blamed through American formatting, black gloves, and my family's medical debt. That means they studied me. If I leave now, you lose the thing they built their lie around. Joon-seo looked at her for a long time. You are not trained for this. I am trained to survive rooms where people think my body makes me slow, my kindness makes me stupid, and my debt makes me purchasable, she said. Do not confuse that with no training. He accepted the correction without apology, which Nia found strangely more respectful than a softer man's guilt. At 4 a.m., after Park secured her family's relocation and the poisoned broth was sealed for testing, Joon-seo moved her from the staff corridor to the inner residential wing. He did not call it protection, and she did not call it imprisonment, but the reinforced door, interior-facing window, and guard rotation outside said enough. Her room had a bed too firm to be hospitable, a desk, an emergency phone, and a small tray of tea that someone had prepared badly. She corrected the steeping time out of spite before drinking it. Over the next 5 days, the house changed shape around suspicion. Deliveries stopped. Staff were questioned in pairs. Phones were cloned, wiped, and reissued. Joon-seo's men searched vents, pantry walls, vehicle undercarriages, and the narrow service tunnel connecting the kitchen to the underground garage. Nia was interviewed twice by Park, and once by a quiet woman named Seo Mirai, a forensic accountant who wore gray suits and had the unnerving ability to make silence feel like a document waiting for signature. Mirai asked about Nia's agency recruiter, her family debt, her prior employers, her date of arrival, and whether anyone had contacted her before the offer came through. Nia answered everything. Then she asked for the supplier invoices. Mirai looked at her over the laptop. Why? Because whoever framed me used food logistics. If you keep treating this like only a security breach, you will miss the kitchen door. That was how Nia got access to the invoices under supervision, sitting in a glass-walled office at the center of the compound with Park behind her and Mirai across the table. She went through produce,